People who've dated a psycho. What incident made you aware that you were dating a psycho? One day I woke up to find all the men missing from my Facebook friends list, including cousins and uncles. My ex didn't think I'd notice. I'm in med school and she threatened to stab my hands, so that I could never do surgery in the future. Maybe not a psychopath but certainly a sociopath. So many little things to choose from. Here's one. In order to walk from the bedroom to the kitchen, I had to walk through the living room. This involved me walking in front of the TV. I had to walk in front of it to get to the kitchen. I always did it super quickly, but I always got screamed at. Sometimes, I would have to wait 20 to 30 minutes before I was allowed to walk past. One day, while my husband was out, he's my ex-husband now, I decided to rotate the entire living room. I put the TV on a different wall and moved the couch so it faced the TV. Basically, the living room was exactly the same, just rotated 90 degrees. The living room was a square, so it functionally made no difference, except now when I walked from the bedroom to the kitchen, I didn't have to walk between the couch and the TV. When my husband got home, he saw the living room, said nothing about it. We ate dinner and he watched TV as usual. Then we went to bed. The next morning, he refused to get out of bed or talk to me. He refused to leave the house, go to class, go watch TV, anything. He would not say one word. I kept trying to get him to tell me what was wrong and he wouldn't. For 3 solid days, he only got out of bed to grab food or use the restroom. He would not talk to me, would not make eye contact, or acknowledge my presence. I was panicking, thinking he was having some sort of episode. It might seem obvious now, but I had no clue what I had done wrong. At the end of 3 days, he said he felt like I had adequately been punished for rearranging the living room without asking. He even told me to keep it that way. It made more sense, and he liked it better like that. He still had to punish me for what I did though. He'd get out his guns and, with the safety on, point them at me and go, bang. And when I'd jump, he'd laugh and say, "That'd be funny if the safety was off, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?" And then the next day, he'd gaslight me and tell me he didn't do anything of the sort the night before. He was the king of gaslighting. It got to the point where I was seriously doubting my own sanity, because he would deny everything. Woke up one morning and she told me that she kept having dreams where I was dead. Then said the kicker. And, I wake up happy. Engagement over shortly after that. My friend found a psycho. Met her at the bar and ended up taking her home. She decided it should be more than just an one-night stand, and suggested a date the following weekend. He obliges. Their first date was meeting her parents, where she told them how they were going to spend the rest of their lives together, where they were going to buy a house, the names of their 2 children, etc., etc. He dated her for about a month and after they broke up, she started stalking his friends, not him. His friends. She'd somehow find out where we would be and threaten us with lawsuits for ruining her life. I was dating a girl that demanded I call every day. She would hit me for sitting wrong. She once lashed out on me over a social media website that was popular in my country, Lunarstorm. You could see who went to look at your profile. She noticed that a lot of people from my hometown went to look at her profile. She was furious. She said that, "You should talk about me enough so that people aren't curious." When I said, "Wouldn't that make people more curious?" she lost it and screamed at me. She also screamed at me for telling other people that a family member of mine attempted suicide before I told her. She was hot. But crazy. I broke up with her and for years later, she would send me emails telling me I ruined her life. I met her on a train a couple of years later. She was with her new boyfriend. He looked like a whipped dog. Went out to eat at Buffalo Wild Wings one night with a few friends, and I told her about this. See a couple of her friends come in and sit at a table near us, and they never ordered anything. They just drank water and sat there, occasionally glancing at us. After we're done eating, we walk outside and sure enough, I see my girlfriend's, ex now for obvious reasons, car in the parking lot. Her driver's seat was leaned all the way back, and I could just barely see that she was in the driver's seat trying to hide. So I'm already kinda weirded out at this point, So me and my friends leave, and as soon as we back out, sure enough her car starts and backs out as well. She began to follow us through the parking lot. At this point, I'm texting her asking her what's going on, but she kept saying she was with her mom hanging out. Needless to say, I ended things shortly after that. Convinced my entire friend group that I'm a sociopath, and got addicted to cocaine right after breaking up with me. Also became a dealer, and tried to get one of my friends addicted to crack/cocaine for a bit of money. She also found out an autistic guy was in love with her, so she started flirting with him for his money, and now he can't pay for college. I was married to one, he said. He was going to the woods to shoot himself. I called police, told them I thought he was having a military PTSD event. They stopped him, took his gun, and informed me he was never in the military. 4 years into my marriage. WTF. I took photos of all the holes in my walls and got myself a restraining order and a divorce. I dated a girl who believed she was some sort of clairvoyant. So if she had a dream, or even the inkling of a feeling I cheated, that was pretty much the same as if I had banged a girl right in front of her. It sucked. The time she overdosed on her medication, and spent 3 days in a coma, because she thought it was a safer alternative to being killed and eaten by me, a time traveler. I was the psycho actually. In the sense that I had a literal manic psychosis, and I was my poor ex's first serious relationship. Bipolar disorder at full blast is not pretty. I really hope I didn't scar her too much. We're still friends to this day, but I know I have a big disclaimer to announce if I get serious with someone again. I'm male and she hit me on a regular basis. Love makes you not see the bad sides, and just shrug stuff off. I finally saw that I needed to get out, when I was crying one day on the floor. Darn, I've come a long way since then. My ex once memorized my Facebook password, and then logged in, going through my old messages, until he found one, where I had picked up an older conversation with one of my male coworkers. He then proceeded to pretend to be me, and hit on this guy, eventually taking it so far as to plan a time and place for us to bang. Then he texted me, asking what these messages were about, and why I was cheating on him. I was so confused initially, I didn't realize it was him who had hacked me. I just pleaded my innocence and begged his forgiveness, because I had no idea where the messages were coming from. Eventually he told me that he was the one coercing my coworker for sex, and that somehow because my coworker agreed, that clearly meant we had banged before. I have no idea what his thought process was through all of this, but I stupidly stayed with him for a while after that. And it did permanently wreck the friendship I had with my coworker. Wanted me to text him my work schedule, and then would call me on the work phone, and wait in the parking lot for me to come out of work. Wanted to know how much was in each paycheck. One time I texted him my work schedule, and he misread it and freaked out nonstop for 6 hours, searching for me, called my whole family and was about to alert the police. It was his own fault he misread what I had texted him. I broke up with him in public, because he would not believe it, when I broke up with him in private. It was finally to the point where random people who were nearby were like, "You just got dumped." When he told me, had been dating this guy a while and, I thought, things were going really well. I'll never forget the day, because he took me to see Aladdin. We get back to my place and everything's normal. We're conversing and suddenly, he gets this weird look in his eyes. He says, "I can't see you anymore. I'm afraid I might hurt you." I'm thinking hurt, like cheat on me, you know, psychologically. I kind of laughed and told him not to worry, I was a grown-up and whatever happened, we could try and work it out. His voice changed and he looked even worse and said, "You don't understand. I've been having these dreams where I hurt you. I mean really hurt you." Then he jumped off the couch and ran out the front door. Never saw him again. Never tried to call him, cause it really shook me up. I guess I should be glad it stopped there. He just seemed so normal up to that point. It was a normal Sunday evening. My ex-husband had been without a job for going on a few years now. He was well aware of the fact that I had to approve several dozen employees' time cards before Monday, so I could submit payroll. I did this every Sunday evening for 3 years, and the process takes about an hour and a half. Another thing that was common was that he was an alcoholic with a very bad temper. Apparently, this evening he had some severe issues with me completing my employees' time card approvals, after I had spent an hour cooking him and my son dinner. So I'm sitting there on the floor of my living room, because I couldn't afford a couch, because I was effing dirt poor. As I'm eating dinner and working, all I hear is him yelling at me to put down work and pay attention to him. Before I could say, "I'm almost done, just a few more moments," he comes up to me with a full plate of food, takes a huge bite of tilapia, chews it up nice and good, then spits it out all over my face, keyboard and all. I was in complete and total shock. I couldn't effing believe the man that I was married to would spit food in my face and all over my work. I just sat there in awe of it all. I am so glad that piece of crap is out of my life. I was really young and innocent at the time. It kinda started out of nowhere, but it stuck with me forever, and definitely had an effect on my mental state. It started with him posting all of my information online. He put my full name, my address, and a bunch of other info out there for people to find. That was already pretty bad. Then, he started sending me pictures and videos of him self-harming and overdosing. He'd send videos of him swallowing entire bottles of pills. And that was when I knew I needed to get away from him. When I noticed an injured bird on the ground, he walked over, picked it up and threw it against a wall. I walked away and never spoke to him again. Laying in bed one night, after a fight, most likely over something trivial, my girlfriend fell out of the bed. Maybe she rolled out, but it seemed like a fall. She then stood up and started running into walls. Bloodied herself up real good, and I couldn't get her to stop. Downstairs neighbor heard the commotion and called the police. Police show up and see her sitting on the couch all bloody. Police become very interested in me. I try to explain to them, she is running herself into the walls. They do not believe me, who in their right mind would? Fortunately for me, she stands up and runs across the room, right into a wall, practically knocking herself out. Police provide me an escort to the hospital, still don't trust me I suspect. After the hospital staff take her into the back by herself, to ask her if I was hurting her, I'm sure, they allow me in the back room. While waiting, she gets out of bed and grabs a bunch of gauze from the cabinet and starts wiping the floor with it. I ask her what she was doing, and she tells me that she is cleaning the floor so the fish can see out of it. During her 2-month stay on the top floor of the hospital, I continued to visit her. I had a seizure, and when I came out of it, he was standing above me, yelling at me to stop being a effing retard, you stupid bee, and this is effing embarrassing. Then he dragged me up to my feet, slammed me against the wall, and bellowed at me to never do that again. Yes, I noped right the hell out, and that was the first indication he ever gave me that he was capable of something like that. He invited a bunch of people over to hang out by his fire pit one evening, so I could meet his friends. I managed to hit it off with a few of his guy friends, same taste in movies, etc. No flirting whatsoever. As the last person was leaving, he and I were standing in the backyard by the gate. He grabbed me by the belt loop and pulled me towards him. I thought he wanted a hug. He didn't. Turns out, he was unhappy that I hit it off with his friends, because now they might steal me from him. What? But this was all my fault, again. What? He had a large stick, he had pulled from the fire, maybe about an inch diameter, in his hand. He wasn't pulling me close. He was pulling my pants away, so he could brand me, with the still red-hot stick I hadn't noticed, in a place no one would see. I still have the scar, but I don't have him. When in the shower, he casually mentioned he had 2 kids, dating for a month, was 14 years older than me, not 5, and his kid's mom had a restraining order on him. Before this, he was just a slightly eccentric hippie, with a kind heart and a love for spontaneity and bike trips. He ended up pouring patchouli oil all over my door, it's a love oil, leaving cursed voodoo eggs on my porch, and sabotaged my bike, so when I went down a steep hill, the brakes fell off and the bike crumbled. He had just returned it. Didn't really understand how unhealthy she was, until after our breakup. She proceeded to key insults into the side of my car about a week later, because she assumed I had already started seeing other women. She tracked down every single person I know on Facebook, including family members and the CEO of my company, to send them a fairly unflattering and risque picture. The picture also came with a page-long story of how I couldn't be trusted, as I'd beat her, raped her, stolen money from her, etc. Had to get a restraining order and take her to court over trying to sabotage my life/career. It was super messed up, and I genuinely hope she got some help. Thankfully, I haven't heard from her in almost 4 years, and I now live on the opposite side of the country.